is Jeff Durkin here with We Are Change Connecticut out here in Times Square, New York City with comedian and political activist Lee Camp. Lee, thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on whatever this is. No, I'm kidding. You guys do good stuff. So.
Thanks, we appreciate that. So just tell us, anybody out there who might not be familiar with your work, how you got involved, really. What was your turning point for getting involved from comedian to political activism and kind of combining the two?
Yeah, well, I've been doing comedy forever. I've been doing comedy for about 14 years. And then, I mean, it became political probably 9 years ago or something during the, not actually long after the Iraq invasion was kind of the turning point where it was like, I have to start talking about this on stage. I can't fucking only talk about dog sweaters. It's like, yes, I can throw in a dog sweater joke every once in a while, but it can't only be dog sweater. Like, there's too much going on in the world that is so phenomenally fucked up that it was like I had to start talking about it. So then my act became increasingly political, increasingly kind of activism oriented. And then I started going to protest more, and I was asked to be a part of the occupations that ultimately, to kind of put out the word for an occupation of New York and also an occupation of D.C. Those both ended up happening. One became Occupy and the other one ultimately merged with Occupy. So it was kind of like I was right at the beginning of that, and it was an amazing time, and I think we're going to see more of that,
So definitely anybody who's not familiar with your work, which I highly encourage to check out your new web series, Moment of Clarity. If you could tell us, tell the viewers out there who may not be familiar with it, how to find it.
Yeah, so there's actually two versions of Moment of Clarity. This is the older one that I've been doing for about 2.5 years. That is my rants online, and people can go to leecamp.net, or don't go to leecamp.com. That's a Korean porn site, and I wish that were a joke. So leecamp.net, and then you can find it on YouTube as well. It's called Moment of Clarity. So I've been doing that for 2.5 years. There's about 230 online. Each week's different topics. Everything from fracking to voting to the corporate political parties, how much they're bought and sold, to the Keystone Pipeline, all over the map. Important issues, but making them funny at the same time, because this stuff is so depressing. It's like, if you just talk straight about this stuff, people want to drive their car into a bridge abutment. You can't take it for even people. You can care immensely and be like, I care so much, but I can't fucking listen to this for one more second. And so I feel like that's if I have one little thing that I do well, it's like add a little bit of laughter into some really dark shit. And so then there's the newer web series, which we just did a Kickstarter for. We made our goal, and we're going to keep making this Moment of Clarity series, which is a bigger thing. It's full on, like 15-minute episodes. We had Roseanne Barr on the last one. We had Greg Palast on the first one. We have Peter Joseph from the Zeitgeist Movement coming up, and it's interviews, but it's also a lot more. It's my rants. It's some street activism. It's a lot of things all combined, and people can find that again at leecamp.net or Lee Camp on Facebook.
Just one of the ones which I noticed recently, the one about the Boston bombing. You made a really good point, which I encourage people to check out as well. Could you maybe elaborate on that, go into further detail?
Yeah. I mean, basically it was saying, look, I and most people understand that when something like this happens, whenever there's a terror attack, attempted terror attack, whatever, people get very, very scared, and they want to take everything away from the suspects, from the bombers in this case. We want to take away their Miranda rights and their right to a lawyer. We may ultimately take the guy's life, and we want to, if he has a cookie, we want to snatch a cookie away. Even I almost want a cop to give him a cookie so he could then snatch it back. Like, you just want to take everything from him. But those are the times when we have to fight for our rights and fight for people's rights in general the hardest, because when things are nice, when it's sunny out and everything's going fine, no one's talking about taking rights. It's when shit gets scary that people are like, yeah, let's get rid of that right in this right. I mean, the Patriot Act, which was right after 9/11, took away fucking so many rights. Like, that's when we should have been fighting for it. That's when it should have mattered. So it's when you're most scared that you have to stand up for this stuff.
Do you see a different trend changing now with people more getting involved with your work, looking at your stuff? Do you see a trend changing where people are more getting involved more or seeing your good work and all that? Or where do you think it's worse in general, more pessimistic?
Well, I mean, there's definite pessimism, and I view myself as a cynical optimist. I view the glass as half full of shit. So I think it's a good way to see the world. There's definite pessimism, but I think more people are becoming aware. I mean, I think that it's tough to really understand it because we're in the middle of it. You know, it's kind of like a water spider doesn't know it's standing on the surface of the water. It doesn't know it's got 100 gallons of water underneath it. It's just chilling there. Like, that's its whole world. Like, we're kind of there. We're standing in the middle of this thing, and we don't know what we're standing on top of. And I think we're truly in the middle of a global awakening, the size and scale of which we've never seen before, with the exception of maybe that device that scoops your kitty litter, that automatic device. But other than that, because the internet has changed everything, like over a quarter of a century, like 25 years. In 1990, nobody, 1 out of 100 people had even heard of the internet, and I made up that number, but I think it still means something. And it's just changed. It's involved in every moment of our lives, and the real optimistic view I have of things is that nowadays, truth is viral. Like, that's what we're seeing increasingly. Truth is viral. Truth didn't used to be viral. It used to be that if you knew the truth and it wasn't on the news, you had to, like, call up a friend and tell them, physically tell them the truth, and hope they saw fit to tell their hairdresser, and hope he told his parakeet. And then at the end of the week, you can be like, wow, I got the truth out to 10 people. This shit is huge. Like, now, competing storylines come up instantaneously. Like, it took us 40 years to realize through declassified documents that the reason we got into Vietnam, the reason we were sold, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, never happened. 40 fucking years to prove that. Meanwhile, the Pentagon can say to us, hey, we're not killing any civilians with drone aircrafts in Afghanistan, and then someone will raise their hand and be like, well, what about all the civilians you killed with drone aircrafts in Afghanistan? I just got a text from one of their family members and he's pissed. Like, it's that instantaneous. And so that's where my optimism comes from. And I do think you're seeing an increase of it. It's why Occupy existed in the first place. Like, you know, people can get depressed about where Occupy is now, but I think the fact that we even saw the first spontaneous global leaderless protest movement, fucking global, like the fact that that even happened is massive. It means a lot.
Yeah, so just even with the recent interview we did with Abby Martin, we talked about the drone strikes also. We covered the protests in D.C. that happened that day, the National Day of Action, April 13th. And she pointed out the statistics about the 2% success rate for drones. 2%. To show how obvious it is with the drones and how unsuccessful they really are. I mean, it really shows, like you said, we're living in the middle of the matrix, so to speak, where everyone else around us doesn't know what's going on, but we do in a way.
Right, and it's not, it's the 2% success rate, and then, you know, that's not even talking about, like, really getting into how many innocent civilians are dying and how they don't even designate them civilians anymore. You know, they call basically anything a militant just because it's a place they wanted to bomb. Basically, if you get hit by a bomb, you are therefore a militant. It's like reverse engineering, you know, it's like let's find out who we killed, and then that means they're a militant. Like, it's you know, it's preposterous. They change the terminology. It's very Orwellian. I mean, you feel like, and it's tough for me as a comedian, because as a comedian you're supposed to mock and exaggerate things, and when they're this fucking ridiculous, it's tough to mock. It makes it really fucking hard. I'm proud to say I was just made the commissioner of comedic arts for the Green Shadow Cabinet. The Green Party created a shadow cabinet, and it's cool. It's a cool job to have, but I think it's harder than president, because we're in a fucking time that it's like, really? Like, how am I supposed to make fun of that? I mean, they changed the Pentagon changed the definition of the word civilian to mean anybody of military age in a target area. I mean, sorry, too, that's a militant. Anyone of military age. And it's like, they can just change words? Like, you say that to any, you tell that story, that news story, to anyone with an intellect above that of an eggplant parmesan, and they're like, you can't just change the definition. But no, if you're the Pentagon, if you're the president, you can. You can just run around being like, hey, lunch is now dinner, and dinner's now breakfast, and a premature ejaculation is now a just right ejaculation. You can just run around doing that. It's utterly insane.
Just to wrap it up on a positive note more, what advice do you have for people getting involved or want to get involved in activism but don't want to take that last step of getting past the fear and all that? What's the advice for people watching now?
YOLO, baby. No, I mean, you know, I'm only half kidding. I mean, you get one go at this thing. Why not do something useful with it? Why not fight for a better world, a sustainable world? I mean, even if you're one of the nutbags who wants to say that climate change or some sort of climate disruption is not happening, even if you're one of those people, you still know that we are using up every resource that exists. Oil can't last forever. Fucking the materials we're dumping into the oceans we can't do that forever. Like, you don't have to be a genius to realize that it is an unsustainable model. And so why not stand up now? And it should be young people. It should be. I realize the burnout rate is really high because it's tough to see that you matter, but it is, if we're going to win this battle towards a better world, it's got to be death by a million bee stings, you know? It's not going to be one dude standing up there on the mountain with his fist in the air. It's going to be millions of dudes and women, millions of people, you know, getting together and making it happen. So I really think that you just have to think like long term, and if we're gonna fucking go down, let's go down swinging. I mean, we're in the middle of a shit storm, and I think there's hints of an oncoming clusterfuck, and they may merge into some sort of shitsterfuck, and that's not good for anyone. But let's go down swinging. Why not? You know, really, if you're in a boxing match, you're getting punched in the face. Yeah, maybe you're gonna lose. Maybe the guy's 800 pounds more than you, but at least swing at him. You know, fine, you're gonna lose, but swing.
Justification for war, the phony argument about weapons of mass destruction, I was removed. I was definitely in the way. I was very outspoken against the war, and I was subsequently arrested on the Patriot Act and locked up in prison on Carswell Air Force Base while the government rewrote the history books.
Realistically speaking, you know, that just damages the system even more when they realize that individuals are not being held to the same letter of the law as other people. You know, it's hurting them. It's hurting their government. Listen, America hasn't won a war since World War II. Empires don't collapse because you lose wars. They collapse when people stop believing in them.